Do you want to save time and money on costly repairs that would be easy to do yourself? As Benjamin Franklin said, in Poor Richard's Almanac, a penny saved is two pence clear. This means that one of the best ways to have more money is to spend less of it in the first place. By doing your own work on motorcycles, cars, your house, anything that you might have, you can save a lot of money, especially when you add it up over time. I've been building things for years, including building a small Baja racing car, and I put an engine on a bicycle at one point a few years ago. So I have a pretty good understanding of how motor vehicles work. By doing my own work on whether it be cars or anything, I've been able to save a lot of money, learn a lot, and do a much more effective job than a professional would be able to do in the first place. I bought this bike a few weeks ago, and as you can see here, the front right peg had been broken off by the previous owner. In order to switch the pegs, you will need sockets, a socket wrench, the bike, and the spare foot peg assembly. For the Vitacci in particular, you will need a size 14 millimeter socket and a size 12 millimeter socket. You should not need a breaker bar in order to break it. If you do find yourself having trouble getting the sockets off, you should lubricate the nuts because using a breaker bar is likely to put too much pressure on it and break something. Most likely the nuts, but possibly something on the bike. So if it is too tight, do not try to over tighten or go too far with it. Make sure that you lubricate it, let it sit, and then try and do it with this. Do not use a breaker bar. The first step in replacing the pegs is to take the peg assembly off. Due to setbacks in getting the new peg assembly, I will be demonstrating on the not broken peg assembly for this. The first step in getting the peg assembly off is to start by unscrewing the nuts. With this bike, the 14 millimeter nut is on top and the 12 millimeter nut is on the bottom. So you'll put the 14 millimeter socket in the socket wrench and then you'll start to loosen it. Make sure that it comes loose fairly easily. With a wrench of this size, you can pull just about as hard as you can and you won't risk damaging anything. But make sure that if you're using a longer wrench with more leverage, you don't break anything. Switch to the 12 millimeter socket and loosen the bottom one until the whole assembly will come off. Take the new assembly, put the screws from the old assembly in, making sure to keep the same screw in the same hole, in this instance the 14 millimeter screw in the top and the 12 millimeter screw in the bottom, and then line up the screws into where they go in the bike. Put the screws in, making sure to back them in so that you do not strip them, as you would with any screw, and then begin to tighten. Tighten one side most of the way until you feel some resistance, and then go to the other side, as you again would with any bolt, like if you were changing tires on a car, how you would do the star pattern, as opposed to tightening one all the way down. This enables it to go in much smoother by not having it be tightened in the wrong place. The screws line each other, and then you can tighten them all the way to keep it secure. There are many advantages to doing your own work on your car, bike, or whatever you may have, as pointed out by the Boxer twins on their website. One advantage the owner has is a personal stake in the outcome. That means that when you bring your car to a mechanic or something like that, the mechanic does not have a personal stake in the outcome. If something goes wrong 150 miles after you had work done to it, the chances that the mechanic is going to personally lose anything from it are very low. If anything, you're just more likely to go back because there's another thing that needs to be fixed. Whereas when you're doing your own work, you have all the stake in the outcome. You do the right work because you know the consequences of what will happen if you don't. If you're doing work on your brake lines, you're probably going to be careful because if you screw up, that's going to be your death. You also have more customization. You can do things your way, and you can perhaps use different parts from what a mechanic might do. You can do a different method from what a mechanic would do because they all have a method that they prefer, but sometimes you have specific needs that they're not going to address because they do things in a generalized manner. Additionally, you learn a lot from doing it. Now that you know how to change foot pegs, you can continue to learn how to do more on your own. And it gets a lot more complicated than this. This was a very simple project. And with complexity comes a lot of really cool projects that you can save a lot of money, unlock a whole new world of customization on. Good luck.